Irving Goffman once wrote, "We are all just actors trying to control and manage our public image. Today we spend more time fitting in than simply being. At work, with friends, even when we're alone, we catch ourselves performing. Even on your days off, there's pressure to be productive, interesting, or at least presentable. What's more, smiling when we're tired and nodding when we disagree. And the reasons might be simpler than we think. First, we've built habits around being watched by followers, coworkers, even strangers. Second, we've learned to show our best selves all the time, edited, filtered, always ready. But after a while, that version starts to feel fake, even to us. And third, when we perform long enough, we lose track of who we were before the performance started. We don't mean to fake it, but when approval becomes currency, performance becomes survival. So now, what if you asked yourself, what parts of you only show up when no one's watching? Have you ever smiled when you were annoyed just to fit in?
What would you honestly say?
Alan Watts once said, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now." In our world today, we often treat being busy as proof that we matter. We chase full calendars and endless checklists, as if slowing down means falling behind. So when did motion become a measure of meaning? Maybe it's not just productivity we're chasing. First, we've confused activity with progress, thinking motion always means momentum. Not all movement takes us somewhere that matters. Second, being busy helps us avoid the discomfort of stillness. Because silence gives space for questions we're not ready to face. Third, in a culture obsessed with constant output, stillness is mistaken for weakness. So we stay busy not just to keep up, but to stay visible. And in the process, we lose sight of what we were moving for. So now, what if you asked yourself, what are you really chasing through all this busyness? Have you ever finished everything only to feel strangely empty?
What would you honestly say?
Bill Gates once said, "Life isn't fair, get used to it." That blunt truth lands hard in a culture obsessed with merit and hustle. We're told effort equals reward, grit guarantees success, and work always pays off. But if outcomes were truly fair, wouldn't the same effort yield the same result? And if not, what does that say about how we measure success and ourselves? When the cards we're dealt aren't equal to begin with? And maybe the weight we carry isn't just from the running, but from believing the race was ever fair to begin with. First, we were told that effort alone earned success. Second, we ignore how much luck and starting points affect the path. And third, we still cheer for the winners, even when their lane was shorter and the road smoother. If results depend more on where we begin than how hard we run, maybe it's time we rethink what we're really rewarding. So now, what if you asked yourself, what would change if you stopped blaming yourself? Would you run differently or step off the track?
What would you honestly say?
Rollo May once said, "The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity." We live in a culture that tells us to love ourselves boldly, visibly, constantly. But somewhere along the way, self-love turned into performance. We pose for approval, post for validation, and act confident even when no one's there. But who are we really trying to convince? And what standards are we chasing just to feel like we're enough? And maybe what we call confidence is coming from what we've been taught to project. First, we've learned to measure our worth through applause, not just from those who know us. Second, we've built our image on likes, hearts, and metrics, chasing digital proof that we matter. And third, we keep performing certainty, even when we're unsure, just to feel we still belong. If the loudest version of us isn't the truest, maybe it's time we stop chasing confidence. So now, What if you asked yourself, if no one praised you, would you still feel sure of who you are? Or have you started mistaking performance for self-worth?
What would you honestly say?
Søren Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." We map out our lives, set goals, follow advice, and chase clarity. But deep down, we often feel directionless. Not because the world is too big, but because we haven't yet asked what really matters to us. So we keep moving, even when something inside whispers, "This isn't it." And maybe the reason we feel lost isn't lack of effort, but the absence of an inner compass. First, we've been taught to plan before we understand ourselves. Second, we chase what others value, hoping it will eventually feel right. And third, we mistake constant movement for meaningful progress, even when each step leaves us more uncertain. If we never stop to ask what truly resonates, we might end up somewhere successful, but far from where we were meant to be. So now, what if you asked yourself, are you chasing your future or just running from noise? What if the life you're building doesn't feel like yours?
What would you honestly say? You don't have to answer right away.